What is up YouTube, I'm Royal and I'm back with another tier list video for patch 4.4b. So I'm using a face cam. If you like the face cam and you want me to keep it, comment down below. If you absolutely hate it, you think I'm ugly, comment down below. And let's get straight into it, starting with the mid lane. So obviously we're gonna have Vladimir and Jace as our god tier champions of the patch. Jace and Vladimir have been dominating ever since Vlad came out. He has been dominating. Jace has always been a great mid laner, but ever since the addition of First Strike and the changes to Duskblade, he's definitely become a god tier champion. You can check out my Jace video to see how strong he actually is. I'll probably be making a Vladimir guide soon as well because I still see a lot of people playing him wrong. So mages are still very strong due to queens. Some assassins that generally do well against mages are also very strong, like Kassadin. Kassadin has been stomping in China Wild Rift Pro Play. If you guys want to see more esports Wild Rift videos, comment down below. I would love to make some. But yeah, Kassadin has been stomping over there. Akali is also pick or ban. Akali is just over buffed, I feel like, and she does very well with all the new items. Corki has gotten some buffs, he's gotten some love, he's still very strong. And yeah, mages for the most part, Yasuo is still dominating. So let's move on to the ADCs. Ezreal is obviously gonna be the god tier ADC. You guys know I love Ezreal, but these buffs plus the Trinity Force buffs make him super OP. And at the same time, they nerfed Bloodthirster, which is the ADCs that were dominating Ezreal last patch, right? Caitlyn, Xayah, and Tristana are all nerfed, all those hyper carry ADCs, due to the Bloodthirster changes. There's some directed Jinx nerfs as well. So all these hyper carries will be going down the list, while Ezreal is going to be shining with these new buffs. Obviously, Ezreal is one of the hardest champions to play, so don't just expect to pick him up and instantly stomp every game, right? You need to know how to play this champion. Varus and Kai'Sa are gonna be there just from their ability to go both AP and AD. That gives so much utility to a team, and you can adapt, and they're great in all situations, and especially Varus with his ultimate, right? He can change team fights, he can go poke, he can do whatever he wants. Ziggs is obviously in this list because of how impactful he can be as an AP option. Corki is another great AP option if you want that consistent damage and AD carry playstyle as well. So for Sivir, I definitely think she's good, but she's not as good as the S tier champions. Her utility is insane, and her team fight is amazing, and honestly, if this list was made for competitive, I would have her in S tier. However, because we're mostly focusing on ranked and solo queue and not necessarily fives and teams, Sivir is going to be in A tier. I'll definitely recommend playing these hyper carries after the Bloodthirster nerfs with an enchanter if you can, as they're not going to be that strong on their own, especially Jinx. Moving on to jungle, of course we have Lee Sin as the strongest jungler by far. The only one that's even close to him is Kha'Zix, but I still think Lee Sin is a tier on his own. He's definitely hard to play, however he has unbelievable damage and unbelievable utility, and his snowballing is so good. He's just the strongest champion in the game the entire time. He falls off slightly in the late game if you're not good on him, but if you're good on him and you can constantly get those great kicks, those insects to assassinate the enemy carries, get those 4 or 5 man knockups, he's still extremely impactful. Riven's clear speed is way up due to the buffs, so I definitely think Riven is one of the best junglers right now just because of how quick her clear speed is and all the mobility she has in the early game. Evelynn, insane snowball. Kayn, insane after you get his form. Kha'Zix is an absolute menace. He's actually better than Evelynn, Riven, and Kayn. He's probably in an S plus tier if there was a tier by himself, but he's nowhere near as good as Lee Sin. Darius is actually going to be a lot more impactful now because of his clear speed increase, and also his 3v3 skirmishes are going to be really good with his first ability heal. He heals a lot more now. Nunu has actually received some pretty big buffs on his tank build, and I think he's a great tank jungler. He's probably the only viable tank jungler, honestly. While every other tank jungler like Amumu or Nautilus just end up building AP anyway. However, Nunu is one of the few junglers that you can build tank and he will still be super impactful. Moving on to Baron lane, and this we actually don't have any god tier champions. However, all the S tier champions, Ornn, Camille, Akali, Fiora, Jax, Darius and Renekton, all of these champions could be god tier. They're extremely strong, You can pick them interchangeably based on your playstyle. If you like assassins, go for Akali. If you like tanks, go for Ornn. If you like bruisers, go for Darius or Renekton. If you like split pushers, go for Fiora, Jax, or Camille. All of these champions are absolutely insane and can hard carry games. In A tier, we have just a tier below that. These champions are still very, very strong. They can definitely carry games. However, they're a bit matchup dependent and they can't truly 1v9 like the champions in S tier can. Also, don't sleep on Teemo. Teemo is actually a great champion. He just doesn't have a lot of great matchups. And the problem with Teemo is that usually in Baron lane, you get a bit more of a front line, right? Like all of the champions can kind of be front line. Kali not so much. However, most champions in A tier and S tier can be front line. Teemo cannot. So only pick him if you have a front line elsewhere in your team. Jungle, support, you have a bulky team already, and you're lacking some damage. Teemo can actually be really, really good. He's a very underrated champion. B tier champions are still good, however, they're more niche. If you really need a tank, you can go for something like Nautilus, the Sion. For split pushing, obviously, I think you should be going for Fiora, Jax, or Camille. However, Gwen and Irelia can find some angles, especially Irelia now with her buffs, even though I still recommend picking her in mid lane. The Wind Brothers, Yasuo and Yone, are just better off in mid lane. They don't have great matchups in the Baron lane. They're going to get absolutely stomped by these 7. The main issue with champions in B tier is honestly that their matchups against the champions in S tier are really bad. The A tier champions can still kind of survive and still be impactful, especially Malphite. I think that's a champion that could possibly be in S tier because of how strong his ultimate is, especially in a solo queue environment. Okay, let's move on to support tier list. So God tier is of course gonna be Karma. She got some absolutely insane buffs. Her poke is gonna be insane. Her ultimate is gonna do so much damage. As you know, you should be building her AP, not support, when you're playing her in the bot lane. Make sure you get your Ludens. Make sure you get your Medjais, I would say, and also Death Cap. That's the core build for Karma, and she's gonna be God tier in the support role. In the S tier, obviously, you have the 2 best engagers in Thresh and Nautilus. Nautilus by far the best engager. Thresh just has so much utility, not just with his hooks, but also with his lantern. If you play Thresh well, there's an argument for God tier as well. Yuumi and Soraka are the best enchanters right now after the nerfs to Lulu. Lulu is still gonna be good. However, now if she falls behind, she's gonna be super easy to kill. So ideally, you only want to play when you're playing Lulu, you want to get a lead, you want to snowball your lane and be ahead for most of the game. Otherwise, she'll be kind of squishy and her shield is not going to be as impactful. But honestly, you never pick Lulu for her shield, right? You pick her for the ulti, the second ability, and her passive, which works with your shield. So the shield nerf is not that big of a deal. However, her losing some armor is going to be very impactful in the early game. You're going to fall behind more often and you're not going to be able to survive late game if you're falling behind. Pyke is obviously my favorite support because of his scary potential, right? His roams are absolutely insane and you can take over the game. However, he's a pretty hard champion to play. The champions in B, C, and D tier, I'm not a big fan of. Rakan is obviously very good with Xayah, but other than Xayah, he will struggle. Shen is mostly better for organized play if you're playing 3v3s or 5v5s. However, I would stick with the A+ champions when it comes to the supports. So yeah, this is my tier list. If you agree with me, comment down below. If you disagree with me, comment down below and we can discuss it further. I could be wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.